wherever you're at, because everybody's situation is different. I mean, some people might still have young kids at home and truly can only do a smaller deal with like a JV situation. Maybe, it just kind of depends. And so I do like that about the program, that he's so open to all levels coming in, to get started, just to get started. That's the biggest thing. Take the step. It might be scary, but take the step.
Welcome to this episode of the Success Journey of Real Estate Investors. Hi, my name is Ceballos-Pinero. I'll be your host for today. The goal of our show is to hear from deal makers and their first apartment deals that they have closed, as well as the Michael Blanc products and services that help them along the way. Let's get to it. Today, we have Ken and Rachael Wick. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Beautiful. I'm so happy to see your smiling faces despite some of the technical difficulties that we were having earlier. So I'm so happy to welcome you here. So let's start with hearing a little bit about yourself and your real estate journey, how you got started, how you are today. Let's hear it.
Sure. Rachael and I are former teachers. I was in for 30 years and Rachael for 25. About 17 or 18 years ago, we began to invest in small multifamily in our hometown here in southern Minnesota. We bought a single family, duplex, triplex, that sort of thing. And we had 6 kids and 2 full-time jobs, and that was enough to deal with for a short-term period of time.
You had 6 kids? I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. You had 6 kids and you're a teacher, and did you say a full-time job too?
They're both
2
teachers,
full-time jobs
in education. It was crazy.
Oh my God. So you had your own 6 kids and you were teaching other people's kids. Bless you.
We're
Go ahead. I thought I heard that wrong. I'm like, holy crap. Go ahead.
So the reason, but there's a deeper reason that we started investing in real estate, and that goes back to Rachael and her family.
Yeah, my grandparents actually used to have a 4-plex out in Tustin, California, and they house hacked it. And I'm sure a lot of the listeners have, thought about doing that, or if not, they should. She ended up, her and my grandpa lived in one of the apartments, and my aunt lived in one of the other apartments, and my great grandma lived in the 3rd apartment, and then they rented out the last apartment to somebody. And after they sold that, they actually became the bank. So they did seller financing to the next owner. And after that, my grandmother was able to buy even more property in California. And as you know, everything just appreciated amazingly. And after she passed away, us 6 grandchildren actually got a good inheritance that allowed us to kind of all kick off real estate investing and purchasing our own first home, etc. So as teachers, we knew that real estate needed to become a part of our life in order to help provide for our family in the future, and leave something behind for our kids.
Beautiful. I like that. You kept it all in the family, the 6 kids. I completely connect with that. I have 2 daughters. My husband has 2 daughters. And we're blessed because, well, I shouldn't say blessed, that's probably not a good word, because mine are with me 90% of the time, but the weekends I don't have them, so I can focus a lot on the real estate. And his kids are kind of, here once a month, give or take. So we have a little space. So that is for everybody who makes excuses, I don't have time, I don't have this. You have Ken and Rachael with 6 kids and their teachers, so they're taking care of your kids too. And it's admirable. So no excuses. That's what I took away from that. So how did you hear about Michael Blanc's programs? Once you got the inheritance, one, you're very smart to not just, hey, let's just go have a heyday with this money. You chose to invest this. And so what got you started on that journey?
So during the time I had exited education a couple of years before Rachael did, and I mentioned that we had a triplex. My full-time job became remodeling each of the apartments in the triplex in turn. So I would go over during the day and bring all my tools and get to play apartment remodeling guy, which was actually really fun. It was great because I got to learn a whole bunch of new skills and actually bought a few new tools, and it was very therapeutic. Rachael would come over after work on the weekends and she would help me, and she would put in she would get her phone and put it in her earphones and start listening to podcasts.
Yeah, and kind of because across from the street from our triplex, there was this beautiful 8-unit apartment complex. And Ken and I would be like, man, if we could just own an
Get that
eightplex, woo, that would be amazing. It's so beautiful. And we thought, only really rich people can get that size of a property. We just didn't know. We did not know syndication existed. So all those hours and hours of I'm the painter and caulker, and I do a lot of that little stuff. I just started listening to more real estate podcasts, which is where Michael Blanc then comes into play. And we're also Christians, and we love to give back through our properties. And so hearing his whole story, the beginning, the successes, the failures, kind of how it ebbed and flowed until he got to where he is today, and how faith played a part of that is it was just, I was absorbing. And I'm like, Ken, we could do this. We could actually, learn some of these techniques we didn't even know existed. And then kicked it off.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I remember, well, first of all, let me rewind for a second. So I have two questions. Well, one, I want to make a comment on the journey that I completely remember that story because it changed my perspective when I started this journey. When Michael Blanc he said, I thought I had control. I thought I had control of my life, and this is what I wanted to do. And he had the pizza parlors and this and this. And he started to pray. He's like, I didn't consider myself a super religious man, but I was like, God, just give me some guidance and tell me what to do. And I believe it was in a dream or something. It said, create a blog, or that inner voice that we all have that we don't always listen to. Right. And so that's huge, because then I kept thinking, I go, that's me. I always think I have control. I have control of this. I have control of that. And when he said that, you really don't have control. God has a plan for everybody. So you just need to tell him, what's my soul contract? What's my purpose? Put it in his hands, listen, and let it go. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's very memorable on Michael. First, another question. You had mentioned, you had the triplex, you were looking at duplexes, etc. From that experience to going to apartment buildings, how would you say that journey differs?
You want to start?
Yeah. So one of those God moments, I was working at the triplex. Rachel was at work, and I heard this advertisement for take some training and learn how to do apartment investing. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe we should look into that. And from that point on, we started investing. What are some ways that we can learn how to invest in apartment complexes? And what are the types of things that you have to learn how to do? So
we kind of, again, as many of your listeners have done, you start now jumping into YouTubes. You start looking at, you don't even know that underwriting exists. You start learning, okay, what do we need to do there? So we started to gather as much information as we could. We joined a few groups of other investors that were learning. We tried to work on some partnerships, learned about business structure, got ourselves set up. So when the time came, boom, we could move. We really do recommend that to the listeners. That's going to be an important piece to have ready to roll. We also started to line up people that might have like earnest money, so we could, again, move quickly when the time came. We are in Minnesota, and we ended up partnering with a couple of gentlemen out in Las Vegas to kick off our like GP type of journey. They were probably a year or two ahead of us in experience. And so they were lead sponsors, let's call it. And we started with a 36 unit, came in, we were able to play a minor part. And we'll just tell people, hey, if you can play a minor part, it's still a part, right? And it's a lot about credibility, right? So, we started then working towards letting people know this is what we do. And we'd recommend people start doing that before they even start getting a GP position, so that, they can start helping people learn. And we found that teaching is a huge part of this. We're teaching everybody, investors, that don't even know they want to be investors yet because they don't understand it. So we went from the 36 unit, which basically we did like a 1-year flip on that property.
The first, what Rachel was referring to as we invested with these two gentlemen. We actually met these two guys at a series of different multifamily conferences. We kept bumping into them every conference we went to. And that's one thing that we recommend. Find your local real estate conferences. Hey, if there's a regional one happening in your town or close to you, attend it. If there's national ones that you can get to, attend it. Like a block conference, there's tons and tons of people that you can meet there. So we kept bumping into these two guys, and one night we were out for dinner, and they said, well, we have this apartment complex out in Las Vegas that we're buying, raising capital for. We're almost done. We need another 50 or 100,000. How would you guys like to invest? They're asking us. And it turns out that the day before we had just sold a house and happened to have a pot of money sitting there doing nothing.
I know. What are the odds,
And
right?
then so,
That works.
So
you know,
convenient.
I'm Scandinavian and I'm from Minnesota. You know, where people don't come out of the igloos until June. So I was like skeptical, and I was like, I don't know, you know, let's pray about it. And so we prayed about it, and we had another conversation with one of the partners, and he starts quoting scripture to us. And I'm thinking, all right, this gentleman knows God, and maybe and we're hearing from God that it's okay to do this.
Mhm.
And that's how we got into our first multifamily, more than 3 units.
Mhm.
It was a 36 unit out in Las Vegas.
Yeah. And then we had, like we said, we had a minor GP part. We got to play some of the decision-making roles in the renovations, and do a little bit of investor relations work, let's call it. And then our partners who live in Henderson, right by Las Vegas, started just picking up a lot of like 22 units here, 24 units, another 30, all in the same 2 blocks, you know, kind of going mom pop, just picking them off one after another. And so we kind of continue to grow that way. So kind of riding on a little bit of their experience. Then we're like, okay, it's time. It's time for us to go for lead sponsorship. And we decided about 3 hours away from us, we'd been down to a submarket of Des Moines, Iowa, called Ankeny. And it had been exploding when we looked at it about 2 years prior. So we were on the broker's list. We got something small, like a 16 unit came into our email. You know, we've all been taught bigger is better, right? And so we're like, here's that we didn't have the courage at first. We're like, okay, maybe we should just try for a 16 unit. Then we wouldn't have to cap raise so much, you know, And I just want to warn people against that, because honestly, the bigger they are, the easier they are to manage and have staff on site. So we said, okay, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so we just ended up calling the broker, and like 16, huh? That's kind of small. Anything else? And he said, well, yeah, the same owner has 32 more units 4 blocks away. It's almost an identical type of property. So the total was 48 units. And we're like, oh, that's a little more enticing to try after. And so we made the trip down there. We met the broker. We toured the properties. We came home and we said, let's put it in LOI.
Yeah. It was a perfect Class C value add situation, just like what's taught, you know.
Yep.
You have to force appreciation.
And part of this, of course, we did an underwriting, and we had a coach at the time. We had him look it over, and he said, yeah, you should go for this one.
And actually, we've come to find that the deal analyzer, and we're like cheerleaders for the deal analyzer. Everybody, we're like, you guys, this is the easiest underwriting template. And we've bought multiple. It's the easiest, most flexible, and allows you to do a lot of that, construction loan, bridge stuff. And it's easily manipulatable to your situation. So, so we ended up.
Yeah, we put in an LOI, and days later, we had a call from the broker saying, yeah, the owner accepted your LOI, and kind of looked at each other and went, oh, that's great.
And I'm glad you brought up the syndicated deal analyzer SDA. So was that one, did you hear about that from the podcast or the book? So would that be the specific product that helped you along the way that Michael Blanc offers? Or did you ever join the mastermind in the group where everybody's chatting and collaborating and sharing? What would you say has made the biggest impact on your journey that Michael Blanc?
I will tell you, we learned some stuff outside of Michael Blanc. He was the inspiration for us to even move into this. If we knew now, and at the time we didn't know all that Michael Blanc's team offers, what we do is we do recommend other people that we are teaching that want to do this. We do recommend his program because we think the deal analyzer, and we know that it's all taught there. We think that is just the best tool. And we do recommend then we tell them, like, here's the website, here's how much it costs, go get it, get started with it. So.
And one of the reasons we recommend Michael Blanc is, his character. He's a Christian, he's a God-fearing person, and we are too. We tend to like to associate with other Christians, not exclusively.
People that want to
Because
help.
we,
Back.
part of our mission as Christians, of course, is to spread the gospel to those who haven't heard it. So we work with all kinds of people, but we believe there's integrity in Michael Blanc and his product, and that's why I recommend it.
And one of the other reasons that we recommend his too is he's not like, oh, go out and get a 200 unit off the bat. He's like, wherever you're at, because everybody's situation is different. I mean, some people might still have young kids at home and truly can only do a smaller deal with like a JV situation. Maybe, it just kind of depends. And so I do like that about the program, that he's so open to all levels coming in, to get started. Just to get started. That's the biggest thing. Take the step. It might be scary, but take the step.
So you touched on something too, and I've asked some of our previous guests the same question. And you had mentioned, which is extremely important to me too, credibility, honesty, character. So that being said, most of us can't do this alone. So what would you recommend to those watching? How to build a team? What are some things to look for? What are some red flags? How did you guys really scope out to a team? Because as we all know, if you really want to scale, you need a team. It's hard to do all of this alone. You could be, superwoman, all right, go rock it, but it's hard.
Yeah,
So
if they want to work 14
advice
hours
you
a day.
What's that?
They could do it. If they want to work 14 hours, 16 hours a day, they could do it, but we're going to recommend a team.
Crazy.
Yes. Like Rachel mentioned, in our journey, we happen to be fortunate enough to come under the wing of a couple of guys out in Las Vegas who help teach us the ropes. And now we're kind of turning around and doing that back to other folks that are interested in some investments that we're looking at. But you do have to have people on your team. You do have to have somebody on your team who can find deals, who likes to talk to brokers. And you have to have another person or same person that can underwrite, that can really analyze those deals quickly and decide whether or not we're spending time on. It's nice to have a person on your team who can deal with social media, because that's become such an important part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And setting up your tech, and if you have a portal, maybe you have a Facebook page, maybe you LinkedIn accounts, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So finding people that are of like mind is important, and also finding people that have different complementary skill sets is important as well.
And one of the things that we do when we're talking to people that want to grow and possibly become syndicators is we say, okay, let's look inward. What are your gifts? What have you been given right now that you love to do? Are you somebody who loves spreadsheets? Are you somebody that is so meticulous you will read through contracts just looking for problems? Like, you need somebody that's into doing that stuff. Are you somebody that is, it takes a little bit of courage to be calling brokers, and you try and set up lunches and trying to talk to lenders and the insurance and inspection. So you need somebody who's mechanical. You need all these parts. So we say to you, what's your parts? What do you feel is you're good at? And then let's try and find it. We've kind of found it takes like 4 people or 4 teams on a typical GP to play all those parts and make it successful. So
Rachel touched on a really important part I'd like to mention. You have to have a communicator on your team, somebody who's social, who can talk to people, who's not afraid to really put things on the table, who's kind. And Rachel's all those things. That's the area that she shines. I don't know if you picked up on that, but that's her superwoman's strength.
you saying I'm the chatty Cathy?
There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're providing value, right?
Absolutely.
So then I'm going to ask you then, because I feel there's a lot of value. So when we were growing our team, my goal was at least once a quarter to show up in person, because that's half the battle, is just show up, show up, show up, show up. Please, for the love of God, don't stay behind your computer. Okay. So that being said, have most of your relationships, did you feel it was easier to build once you were in person? Were most of these built? I know you met some of the gentlemen in an event in Vegas and some other avenues. Where were there any relationships that you built over just the internet and the video, or was everything an in-person interaction?
A little bit of both. A little bit of
A little
both.
bit of both. Okay.
We do belong to another Christian organization of real estate investors that has meetings 2 or 3 times a year
In person.
in person in a different locations around the country. We have weekly meetings with a small subset of that group that allows us as just a small group to get to know each other and to talk about real estate and to talk about our lives and pray for each other if need be. So we met lots of people that way. In fact, 2 of our first partners in this deal in Iowa came from that group that we actually met in person or through our weekly Zoom meetings.
I personally would say that, even though it's amazing, we form great relationships on Zoom, there's just something about being in person that throws another layer on. You can read people's body language, and I've kind of got that interpersonal thing. We're both teachers. It's an amazing feeling. Being able to hug somebody. It's so exciting. It's so fun. Joining each other in this journey and all the learning that takes place. So I personally think in person.
I'll echo that too. That's critical. You have to have that face-to-face contact. They both work together though. I think you need both.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Because I have so many people that are just like, they're struggling to progress, but they're never in person. I go, I know it costs money, but you're investing in yourself. And I think it was Alex Hermosi, who I love, that made this comment is, stop investing in the S&P and invest in the SME. Like I've said that, and I've said that to a few people, but it really resonated with me. He was speaking on a virtual platform for Tony Robbins, and I was listening to him. I was like, he has a cool YouTube channel. If you know who he is, he's just super cool. And then there was a couple questions. I'm trying to keep an eye on the clock and be respectful of your time simultaneously while, getting all these questions out for you. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was, were you comfortable prior to this journey talking about money? A lot of people have a hard time talking about millions of dollars. They come from a scarcity mindset as opposed to a world of abundance. If so, how did you overcome that? And if not, how are you already comfortable speaking about these large amounts of money?
Okay, so one thing as teachers, and you can tell how somebody feels, what makes them kind of cringe a little. We definitely found that we got open with our financial situation. So we created a moment where we were vulnerable in front of somebody else so they could feel okay to be vulnerable and relate to us. Because a lot of us are in this age range. We're in our 50s, maybe 40s, 50s. We're starting to think about the future, secure it for our family. So we just kind of go, here's where we were. Here's what we were making as teachers, and we thought we could complement it by adding some real estate. Here's where we are. We're just passing the accredited zone. And then what does that mean? So then you start talking about that. And we just tell them, because why not? If we all work together, we can accomplish so much more. And it does take knowing each other's financial situation. Plus, we wouldn't want somebody to invest their last dollar to be in our deal. We want to make sure they are fine. We've had to tell some people in a very nice way, this probably isn't the safest thing right now for you to do for your situation. How about let's check back in like 2 years, or let's find a different way you could come in on a smaller type of situation. So it's been, just in a non-judgmental, because everybody's at a different place. And if we find somebody's at a place that, definitely has no finances, we start teaching them creative, how to go get their own house hack with no money out of pocket. We'll just show them some of those techniques we learned from Carlton Sheets when we were younger.
Essentially, you're a financial fiduciary, right? You have to put other people's needs ahead of your own, because your reputation is everything, and you want to make sure you're taking care of everybody. Yeah. So I know we're around 5 minutes till, I know I'm so, even in the corporate world, I'm always like looking at the clock, which actually I have a few questions. I should make it quick. One, are you still teachers? Are you guys still juggling to be the teacher and real estate simultaneously?
So
Yeah.
we're not employed by any official institution to teach. I retired from teaching about 5 years ago, and Rachael about 3. But we still consider
Congratulations.
ourselves teachers in the real estate realm. For example, the people that are coming into our current deal, we've offered to give them a peek behind the curtain and teach them the steps along the way with their investments so they can see what it's like to be a general partner and to do the due diligence and to go through the weekly reports and that kind of thing.
And just give them more of an idea of what the lead sponsorship takes. And really, it's not just so easy to work a W-2 and do this on the side.
Mhm.
If you don't have a big team, if you have a team, yeah, you can all play some of those parts. But we try and really open it up for people to help them know all the parts. So at least, they understand a little bit even about asset management and interviewing property managers and how to find alternative ways to find properties.
Refinancing, distributions, the whole works, the whole after you purchase.
Portals, SEC documents. What's a blue
Product.
sky
Yeah.
document?
Yes.
What?
Guys, well then, so for those, and I love your guys' story. It's completely relatable. I think the viewers are going to love this. So for the people who are on the edge, they're humming and hawing, they really don't know if this is for them or they're just scared to take that leap. What would you say to them?
I would say connect with somebody who's done it, or somebody that who can connect you with someone who's done it. Talk to them, try and ask those questions. What is it that's making you afraid? Why are you on the edge? There's really great reasons to invest in real estate, especially during this economic time period. The stock market's taking a hit, and some of your IRAs and 401ks aren't quite looking as they were 6 months ago. So talk to somebody, get in touch with somebody, listen to the podcast, find a resource that will help kind of answer some of those questions.
And one of the things we cannot recommend enough is I wouldn't jump into this with just watching YouTubes and listening to podcasts. I would we recommend to everybody take an educational course that teaches you how to underwrite properly because you are a fiduciary. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the people you're going to bring in, and you would not want to fail. That would hurt you to hurt other people. So why not do it the right way? The government allows you to start a business. There's many benefits for starting a business. We highly recommend that. And why not do it the right way? And just trust, this is where the God part comes in. You got to pray. You got to, number one, ask if this is the right path. 2, then trust for him to provide. So yes, it costs some money up front. But, if you're faithful, he's faithful. He'll help take care of you.
I love that. So I'm going to leave with one more question. And then I actually there was a verse that was in the Bible that it's kind of been guiding, because I grew up going to church. Miraculous Monday, terrific Tuesday, wonderful Wednesday, fantastic Friday. I used to joke around with my mom. I swear church, mom, is a daycare for you. Okay. Church camp, went to Camp Bradley, the whole 9 yards. So I'll end with that, but I also want to ask you, and I ask everybody this, what is a word or phrase that describes your real estate journey today and for the future? Putting you on the spot. So everybody kind of go, oh, dang, Brooke.
So for me, it would be, it's a journey of faith.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what I was going to say.
And don't think you can't.
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah. It's bigger than you are. You're never going to think you can do as much as he can do in your life. So if you put others first, if you're a servant to others, you'll be fine. Have courage.
I love that. Have servant leadership. So on that note, the verse that I've and I should have it memorized by now, but sometimes you get in front of people and you forget everything. So it's Proverbs 16:3. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. Commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. So yes. I think, right? And that really has that way, and after Michael Blanc told his story, then I started including that in my prayers, because I pray every night, every morning, I'm writing down my goals, I'm doing my stuff, trying to keep myself on track, but I feel like I pray for others. I don't really pray for myself. I'm like, you know what? I need to add keep me on track. Like, give me a visual. Is this the right thing that's going on? And this is this. And what's crazy? And I haven't even told this to Rob Penn, who is the content gentleman who reached out to me to do this. Within a few days, he reached out to me through the Deal Maker Mastermind. He's like, Brooke, I want to know if you're interested in doing our success stories for Michael Blanc, and I kept asking for signs, because I'm in the corporate world and I'm doing this on the side as well. I go, give me a sign that I'm on the right track, God. Even Michael Blanc had to pray, and you told him to do a blog. What do you want me to do? And then a few days later, Rob reaches out. It's like, oh my God. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
That's really cool. But yeah, so I know it's 12:30. Is there any final thoughts or anything else that you want to leave us with today?
You go first.
I would just say that number one, get educated, that we can't express that enough, and don't stop. Like, don't think once you have one, you're done. I mean, it's a constant process. And then two, go before the Lord every morning. Ask him, what can I do? Like for us, he said, give it away. That's what he told us. Give it away. And we knew that we're just supposed to help people be whatever they want to be within real estate, and somehow, some way. And as we build community within the complexes, we know he's taking care of us. He'll keep bringing us opportunities because we're just following what he says. I mean, it's that simple, literally.
Yeah, and I just add to that, that is a huge component of what we do. We have a give back process to tithe money that we earn from our properties back into the communities that the properties are located in. And personally, Rachel and I, with our local doors here in Minnesota, we sponsor one child for every door that we have locally here, plus one extra door, in faith that God would continue to provide us opportunities to continue to give back to people in our communities.
Yep. And it's amazing. He's
And
faithful. Here we are.
and
We're on
that's
our
a-
fifth syndication.
I think that's a critical component.
Yeah.
You go to real estate conferences, all kinds of people who are about themselves, but a sweet thing that we have run into with many other people is those who love to give back, and that's what we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Serve the world and the world will serve you, right? It comes full circle. They work with those that they know, like, and trust. And you guys are so awesome. Like, I really love your story, and every person I talk to, you were the first couple, by the way. So very cool. Power couples.
Oh,
So you'll stand out for
that's
sure.
surprising.
I know. We'll see. And that was another question. Do you guys have a few more minutes?
Yeah,
If I
sure.
ask you one more question? Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
And I know they'll edit it because I know they like it under like 25, 35.
sure.
So being a couple, how is the dynamic when you're in this field? And we know there's usually like, how does that dynamic work where support is concerned? How important to you is it to have your partner on the right page? And how did you get there together on this journey?
So that is a learning process. And, coming from I was in two different schools where we were each doing our own thing, and then coming together in the same office, we had to learn how to work together. And it's an ongoing process, but we each have a heart of Jesus, and we can overcome the difficulties that couples typically have when they try to get into this situation. And we have complementary skill sets. So each of us kind of takes certain things that we do best, and we sort of own them. We always bounce things off one another. We share ideas, which we hear, how do we tackle this issue, which properties we look at. But to answer it in a nutshell, give it some time, pray together, not just as a couple, as a married couple, but we pray in our business together. We pray right across the whole peninsula here when we have an issue.
We pray for the people we talk to.
Right.
I mean, everybody's going through something, Yeah, don't you think that we have created some, what do you call it, like daily things that we can do to help each other, stave off anxiety? I probably get the most worried about things. Are we getting it done in time, And so we have a morning meeting, even though we just sit right across the table. We have a morning
Get
meeting.
your coffee. That's huge. Me and my
Right.
husband do that. Just a conversation with coffee and connect.
And we both have like notebook paper, and we make a list of the things we're going to attempt to accomplish that day, and the things that we know we prioritize. And then if we ever get to a point where we do have kind of conflict, we take a moment and we're just like, we chill out for a second, or we'll leave. And what's so funny is we'll just stop. We'll be like, we need to go out and play cards. And then we'll like flip from like business side to just be back to a normal couple and not talk about real estate. And we can do that somehow, you know, because we're partners in this room, but we're also a married couple that love each other very much and we get along very well and we have fun together. So we kind of sometimes switch hats. Yeah.
I love it. You guys are awesome. So I'm not gonna hold you hostage any longer, but I appreciate your guys' time. You know, I think I would talk to you guys for even much longer in my selfish ways, but it's okay. Thank you for coming to see me. And I will get this over to Michael's team. And I can't wait for them to see this. I think the viewers, especially since they're coupled up, the dynamic, phenomenal. Yeah. So motivational.
Very fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke, for having us on. And we really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks to the organization for inviting us.
Yeah.
Of
Totally
course.
appreciate it.
Stay blessed. I appreciate you guys.
You too.
You too.
Take
Have a good
care.
day.
Bye.